This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Our conversation today on News Extra focuses on this ongoing trade war, but from the perspective of the Asian giant China. Our guest on this conversation is Charles Onuniju, the Center Director at the Center for China Studies, Abuja. Good morning, Mr. Onuniju. Thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, please.
Right. So we want to get a view of China's view of the ongoing trade war with the U.S.
My view, in my own estimate, is not so much different from the view of the rest of the world. That trade wars are not winnable and need not to be fought. The integrated global system means that countries can resolve issues relating to trade with some existing mechanisms, and there are also a whole lot of bilateral mechanisms that could support resolving issues of trade disputes. Therefore, it doesn't have to be fought as wars. And this view is not only Chinese, it's also the views of most countries of the world, including partners of United States like the European Union, Canada, and Mexico, Japan, and all the rest. So it is not a strictly China view. It is a view shared by a whole range of other countries, including Nigeria and other African countries. So trade wars simply are unwinnable. It could drag on, disrupt global value chain, disrupt industrial value chain, and leave no winners, but almost fracturing the international system and also escalating geopolitical tension and all that. So this is essentially the view of most countries that in the world. And of course, you've heard the message from WTO, the World Trade Organization, and the same thing from European Central Bank, and even the International Monetary Fund. A whole range of multilateral economic institutions has also added their voice that this could only slip the world into a recession, and it will not be, no clear winner will emerge in a trade war.
So let me ask you this. There have been some analyses, even from U.S. independent experts as well, where they say that, look, no matter how long this trade war drags on for, that China has what it takes to withstand the pressure. Do you share this assessment?
Yes, I tell you something. China has been in anticipation of a pushback against its development, China has instinctively believed that, especially the West, led by United States, would want to contain its development. Because, like you know, modern China was founded against the will of the West. Old China was a playground of the West. They have a whole range of unequal treaties, ceding a whole lot of its territories, including Hong Kong, including Macau, even Taiwan. They were all ceded away. And the founding of New China not only helped the Chinese to stand up, as they put it, but also it played a role in restoring their national unity, opening a path of national development. And this development is not just development as we know it. It was quite rapid. Everybody agreed that China has grew more exponentially in the shortest period in history, lifting 1.4 billion people out of poverty within the shortest period in all human history. These are all phenomena. And China believed that the West, and China developed not on the part of the West, like you know, they modernized on their own terms, taking into account Chinese reality, national conditions, and all that. So China developed and grew outside the frame of Western Orthodox framework of development and modernization. So the Chinese felt the West have grievances, ideological, historical grievances, breaking through the net of development without the permission of the West. So this is quite a simmering thing. So to make it shorter, China has always been conscious of the fact that the West, especially the United States, is determined to contain her development. And it has taken a whole range of proactive measures. I remember as far back as 2020, China implemented a strategy they call dual containment or double containment. This strategy is simply developing Chinese market in such a way that it is robust, integrated, and properly developed, while also aligning to what they call international market. They call it double circulation. That is the strategy of double circulation, relying essentially on Chinese domestic market, but at the same time also aligning essentially with the international market. This was done in view of to contain the possibility of this kind of disruption. It was done to contain the potential of the so-called decoupling. Like there have been threats of decoupling ever since decoupling. So China has long prepared for a time like this, and they have been able to develop their domestic market in such a way that it has become integrated. That even if China is cut out of the world, it could survive trading with herself. Of course, there has been a slowdown in domestic demand, and China is doing everything to boost domestic demand. And that is essentially creating a stable and integrated domestic market that can withstand shocks and volatility from outside. So, frankly speaking, China has been more or less ready for what is happening today almost 10, 20 years ago.
I mean, with a population of 1.3 billion, it's somewhat easy to see how it can maintain trading within itself. But we also saw this was about 2 weeks into the 10% baseline tariff, and then, of course, the retaliatory tariffs between China and the US. We saw the Chinese president decide to start a tour of Southeast Asian countries. He went to Vietnam. We know that he has plans for Cambodia, Malaysia, a way of sort of strengthening the diplomatic ties. The most recent comment we have out of China is telling countries that are approaching the US for negotiations. China is saying, don't trust the US. Do you think that this strategy of diplomatic visits is enough to preserve some sort of external trade for the country?
Yeah, let me tell you something. China has had elaborate negotiation with the Trump administration, especially during his first tenure. There were a number of concessions and agreements relating to stable trade. China made concessions, access to a whole range of U.S. products, and there were a whole range of agreements relating to reciprocity. So when China said the bully can be rewarded, it knows actually what it's saying. It said that the more you give in, the more the bully asks. And this time around, we are not going to accept being dragged to Washington, like President Trump said. Nations are all kissing my ass. Of course, China said we wouldn't kiss the ass of anyone, but we wouldn't shy away with a genuinely platform of discussion that is driven and understood to be equal and respectful, mutually respectful and equal. We will definitely get. China has been pragmatic enough to know that the most knotty issues can only be resolved around the negotiation table. So I don't think China shies away from discussion. It only says we can be coerced into discussion. We can't be forced. We can't control. We can't kiss anybody's ass. And but we are genuine. We can talk on the basis of mutual respect and all that. And like I said, the building fences across the region has been a traditional China approach to good neighborliness. And the latest trip to Asia, which took in, like you understood, took in Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. we are all in line with China policy of good neighborliness.
Right.
And of course, seemingly in contrast with what we see in United States, either threatening to take Canada by force, renaming Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of United States, and putting all neighbors on the edges. You could see that as an approach. So I think China is not opposed to talking. It has stated very clearly, if you are aware, just week Friday, the Chinese ambassador to Nigeria, His Excellency Mr. Yu Dunhai, had a media conference, and he reiterated China's position that we are all for talks, we are all for engaging, but we cannot reward the bully by rushing to Washington and kissing somebody's ass.
Sorry, Mr.
We are for genuine framework. Yes. Okay.
I do apologize. We have to be careful the words that we use on radio.
Yeah, but this is not my word. This is exactly the word of the United States President.
I understand.
It's not my word. I am simply quoting him. Please, you can
we
check.
We understand, Director. Apologies. It's just that we have a responsibility to ensure that it's not repeated verbatim.
Yes, but I am simply... it is absolutely not a decent word, even for me, but it is important to state that this is what a world leader who orchestrated this disruption stated. I didn't own the word. I didn't invent it. That was exactly his word, and it's verifiable.
We appreciate the context. So perhaps going forward, we'll just keep it clean and say, kiss my behind. Perhaps still unsavory, but it does capture the thought.
So, Mr.
I am absolutely not comfortable using it, but that is the world we live in today, and that is the world that is driven by United States and its current leadership in Washington. So if anybody should take the blame for this unsavory language, please place it directly in the doorstep of current Trump's Washington.
Well, we do know that Mr. Trump is very colorful in his use of words to describe countries, and he has used some words to describe the continent of Africa, which is our next point, really. Now, China has access to minerals on the African continent. I wonder if you can speak to us about the implications for African countries, particularly with countries that have historically strong ties to the U.S.
Well, I think African strategic mineral endowment is an opportunity for us to get into the middle or in the center of the international system. Africa is currently endowed with a whole range of strategic minerals that are essential to the energy transition. Like, we are at the cusp of energy transition where fossil fuel, of course, can disappear the next day, but also on its way out with a whole range of renewables and others. Critical in such sector as panels, battery, and electric vehicle. So China has a range of engagement with African countries, but at the same time, United States. If you remember the recently built Lobito corridor, in which United States and the EU spent quite a lot of money connecting Congo and Angola. It was also designed to secure a foothold in African energy resources. China, of course, has elaborate engagement with African countries, and the election is not strictly extractive. There are a whole range of engagement across the board, especially across the value chain. We've seen lithium being built. One has just been constructed in Nigeria and built with to the tune of over $250 million US in Nasarawa State. And so adding value to these things is something I believe China's innovative approach. And I think this is good for Africa. This is good for Nigeria. But like I said, we have to keep up our eyes open. China certainly is not for Christmas. They have their own interest to secure. They have their own, when they invest, they look forward to getting returns on investment. So we should keep an eye on this engagement. But so far, we've seen the transactional gas from Kwara to Lagos to Kaduna also undergoing rapid construction with Chinese support. So I think China's engagement in Africa, especially with regards to extraction, mineral extraction and processing, in my view, falls into the range of the win-win cooperation between China and Africa. But that does not mean we should sit back. We should also come up halfway and meet China halfway, especially in the area of giving added value to our minerals and endowments.
Mr. Onuniju, thank you very much for your time and expertise on this conversation. Charles Onuniju is the director for the Center for China Studies in Abuja, and he joined us on News Extra to speak on the US-China trade war, speaking particularly from the perspective of China.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.